last generation, they didn't have a choice.
The Republican
I
candidate
did
for
not
governor.
have sexual relations
I
with
realize that this is something
Miss
he
Lewinsky.
isn't
We're not going to be able to solve our problems if we get distracted by sideshows and carnival barkers.
One Republican, one Democrat, and you discuss the issues that matter in today's local, state, national, and global politics. Hosted by Steve Hickson with co-hosts John Stanberry and Franklin Chansey. This is Backfire.
Hey, good morning, Cleveland. Welcome to the day after the elections in San Fran, Cleveland.
The day the commercials stop running.
Yeah. The day the commercials stop running, that's a good thing. How much money do you think was spent on commercials, just television
Well, the
commercials?
Senate race here was the most expensive one in Tennessee history.
Well, I mean, there was hundreds of millions of dollars spent across the country.
It's amazing.
Well, here's the thing. Franklin doesn't like dark money. It was almost exclusively spent on his side of the...
Oh, that's absurd, John.
You all outspent us, Franklin. I don't even remember what the numbers were.
First of all, we're talking about Tennessee, John.
John.
First of all, we're talking about Tennessee.
I said
And
nation.
don't tell me there were more ads on the Bredesen side than the Blackburn one. That's absurd.
I didn't say that.
Well,
I said the
then
money.
don't change the topic.
Franklin, I said the
Yes.
money. George Soros, Tom Steyer, and
Sheldon
Bloomberg.
Adelson, the Koch brothers,
The
the Koch brothers
Koch brothers
Foundation.
were virtually non-existent this cycle. Didn't do
The
much of
biggest
anything.
spender, number-wise, was who? Sheldon Adelson.
I'll have
Actually,
to.
that's
I don't
true.
know, Franklin. I can tell you that,
it's
like
possible.
in Texas, for
It's
example.
possible that Michael Bloomberg's total ends up being higher, but as of the last reporting period, it was Sheldon Adelson run away.
There was tremendous dark money spent on the
Agreed.
Democrat side in Florida, in Texas. They dumped money into
Billions.
Arizona.
Not
Huge,
millions, but billions are.
huge money. And it's basically from three people on their side of the aisle.
Well, it's your folks who keep supporting it.
Well, I was going to ask.
But Franklin, I'm not complaining about it. I'm simply
Then why bring it up?
because when the argument is made that there's dark money, it's always our side that gets labeled. Your side does it more than
It's
we.
your side who refuses to help us do anything about it.
Franklin, last time I checked, people respected Supreme Court decisions.
Yeah.
Well, what do you think we ought to do next?
Oh, I definitely think that we need to find ways to limit how much money flows into it.
I don't think you
I
do.
think it's skewed.
unconstitutional
I
to do
think
that.
it's skewed. I don't think that's true. First of all,
Franklin, how much do you think it cost to own a printing press in 1776? Do you
Quite a
think
bit,
someone
I
who
imagine.
owned a printing press was probably a wealthy man? And what advantage did a guy in 1776 who owned a printing press have in being able to print handbills, being able to print pamphlets?
Well, it's also true, John, that the areas most of the people were doing were dependent upon newspaper coverage. Then that's how people got their
But
news.
Franklin, my point is there's always been money in politics, and that's how
Nobody
people
said
express
there
their
wasn't
voice.
always been money in politics.
Well, look, folks.
But let's be honest.
The principle, Franklin. If you're willing to turn more of your control of your life over to the government, then have at
I'm
it. You're
actually
in the
wanting
right
to
party.
take more of my control back.
By telling people what they can't do.
Well, yeah, suggesting that perhaps my elections are not best served by huge inflows of money from
then I tell
people
you what,
in
Franklin,
Washington
Then
State
you're willing
or
to include
Colorado.
the unions in these laws, right?
Yes, I
Wasn't
actually
your
am,
party
John.
wasn't? They were excluded from all of this. The hundreds of millions of dollars that the union spent for Democratic candidates was excluded
John,
from all of the laws.
every year you've talked about for the last 25 years, there have been fewer union members than there were before. Yet somehow you still think they're the bad guys.
Because
It's
they still
absurd.
have millions of dollars. They
It's
just
absurd.
turned back one state's right to work laws. Richard Trumka, the AFL-CIO president, was so classy about Scott Walker, a guy that has saved his state from the brink of financial collapse, has run 4 campaigns when he should have only had to run 2. Trumka's comment when he lost last night was, Scott Walker was a national disgrace. Real classy, Franklin. Classy guy on your side.
Well, if that's the worst you got, that's pretty good.
No, I got a lot more, but that's the one that brought up on this
Then
one.
what you should be focused on, then, if you're smart, is the fact that the Republican Party lost the popular vote by 8%. That's enormous, John.
That's why we're not a democracy, Franklin. We're a federal republic.
Whatever you want to
Now,
call it, John, there is a point where you can't govern from the minority.
The other day, and they were shocked to hear me tell them that we're not a democracy, we're a federal republic. So you're right. Your side's done a really good job of commandeering the education department in our country.
Education department.
And they have basically skewed our civics. Kids don't even know that we're not a democracy. They don't even know what a federal republic is. Mm-hmm. And so, if you all are successful, for example, your party, when you lost this last one, part of your freak out was, let's do away with the Electoral College. If you're successful at that, then you're right. We will lose the popular vote, and New York, Chicago, Los Angeles, Miami will elect every president until we collapse.
Except that what you fail to point out is fewer and fewer people are living in between there. That's just the facts.
Well, Franklin, let me explain something to you.
They taxed them to death.
Here's a problem with that, Franklin.
No, they're leaving those rural areas.
You're right.
Coming to the city.
And you know what, Franklin?
Where they pay more taxes.
You're right, Franklin. But the people that live in those cities, they don't understand what the people outside the cities do to feed them. So when we quit feeding them,
they're all stupid, John.
Well, Franklin, they don't understand. There are kids in New York City that don't know the
First
meat
of all,
in
John,
a McDonald's hamburger.
First of all, John, 90% of the food you're talking about is being provided by big major corporations now who are growing it.
Well, that's
unfortunately,
right, Franklin. We'll have big major
because your party keeps doing everything to prop up those corporations.
In charge of our food. Well, actually, Franklin, people like me that live out here, I actually know how to put a garden in. I know how to raise my own food. I have chickens. I have turkeys.
John,
I can hunt.
Great.
And when the grid collapses, those people in New York City will be eating each other in about 5 days.
The Prepper Party now, sponsored by John Stanberry.
It's a fact, Franklin. The cities can't survive without all the people outside the cities that do everything to provide the energy for them, provide the water for them, provide the food for them. But they're too ignorant right now and too insulated and spoiled.
Actually, what they are is being fleeced by your party.
Really, Franklin?
That's right, John.
We lowered taxes for everybody and the economy
First
roared
of all,
back
John,
and we're fleecing
I'll
them.
tell you what, I'll gladly give my little tax cut back and give it to people below me.
You know what, Franklin? I won't.
I know you won't.
Well, here's the thing,
because
Franklin.
that's exactly
But
what's
you do
wrong
it
with your
personally.
party.
There's a check box on the income tax that you can give any amount you want to the federal government.
Sure.
When those millionaires for higher taxes went on the Hill, they were asked as they came out of the hearing, here's the form, check the box. Not a single one wanted to do it.
Just keep fleecing everybody. All the money's going to the top. All the money's going to the top.
No, it's not.
It's coming out of the middle class and going to the top.
Every single time.
And that's how it is.
Every single time we
Oh,
cut
stop it,
taxes,
John. You've
the
been-
total
you've been
amount of
spouting
revenue
this
paid by
stuff
the
off
wealthy
for 40
goes
years.
up.
Reagan's tax cuts weren't good enough for you.
Franklin,
Bush's tax
the
cuts
rich
weren't good
paid
enough for
more
you.
after Reagan's tax cut. They paid more after Bush's
Yes,
tax
and the
cuts.
deficit blew up.
Because
Every
we
time
spend
you guys
too
do
much,
this,
Franklin.
It's what happened.
We spend too much.
Yes, and the Republicans did that too.
We did this time.
Okay?
Because we can't touch
Because you're the
entitlements
party
because
of
your
the
people are
hypocrisy.
scaring people to
You
death.
have no principles at all.
I'm glad you brought up principles. So the party of women elected Menendez back to the Senate, a man that we know for a fact flew on private jets to the Dominican Republic to have sex with underage girls, Franklin. And Keith Ellison, extremely credibly accused of domestic abuse, is now a chief law enforcement officer in Minnesota. Congratulations, women. That's the party of women.
Wait a minute. You forgot one important thing.
What's that?
Juror number 8
was at his damn victory party.
Victory party.
One of the jurors in his trial went and celebrated.
How in the world would juror number 8 go to a victory party?
No idea.
Celebrate. I mean, that's weird.
He was acquitted of in his trial, but no one disputed the fact that they flew to a foreign country to have sex with underage girls.
Which one are you talking about?
Menendez. And your party, not only did you not kick him out over that, the Democrats in New Jersey reelected him.
Yeah, well, what the Democrats did was prosecute him, John. That's what they did.
And a juror threw a jury and then went and celebrated his reelection.
And that's fine for criticism, John.
Congratulations,
But you know what?
Mr.
Your
Democrat.
party ought to try the prosecuting idea. That's what Democrats do. Remember when y'all started when the Me Too stuff was going on? What did we do? We took it seriously. We actually got our guys to resign. What'd you guys do? You voted for them again.
Caught in a bind, and he had to. And then after the fact, everybody said, "Well, Al Franken really shouldn't have had to." But guess what? Al Franken grabbed a girl's butt, and we know that because we have a picture. Menendez had sex with underage girls,
and the Democrats prosecuted him.
No, you didn't.
Yeah, we did.
You went bad boy, and now you reelected.
The Democrats prosecuted
the Democrat Party dumped $3 million into Menendez's race just last week because he was going to get beat without it. So you poured money into a race to reelect a guy who had sex with underage girls.
You'll have to take that up with the voters there.
The Democrats in New Jersey.
Overall, how did you think the elections turned out last night?
I thought it went largely the way the early predictions were. I said I thought the Republicans would hold on to the Senate, might even increase by 1. I think they're going to increase by 2. So that was expected. We still got about 15 House races that we don't have the full numbers on, but my prediction was 230, and I think that's probably not too far off. So
that's correct.
All in all,
for those who are regular listeners,
probably a really good night for the president.
I think it was a disaster for the president.
No, it's not a disaster at all. Bush lost 43 seats. He may lose 30. Bush lost 43. Obama lost 63.
Well,
and Obama lost the Senate too.
You saw historically high turnout for a midterm.
You did.
It was closer to a presidential election in many respects.
It was.
And what happened? Democrats won by 8% nationwide. That translates pretty large at that point.
Were they legal or illegals voting?
Well, they were
Almost
actually
all
some
legal.
illegals that were caught voting yesterday.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's why Kansas sent Mr.
Here's the
Illegal
thing.
Voting Chris Kobach to the locker room.
Here's the thing. Obama last week made a speech, and he said that the Republican tax cut took money away from all of you. And all the people out in his audience cheered that. That's the real divide here. Republicans look at the money you earn as yours. What Obama was telling all those people is people keeping more of the money they earned and not handing it over to other people was stealing from the other people. It was a good night for Trump. Look, we increased our control in the Senate. He will continue nominating conservative judges, and we will continue confirming them, which will be a disaster for the Democrats. He took the governorship in Florida, in Ohio. We've probably taken Connecticut. He also kept Iowa. All of those. Now, we lost Michigan, but we kept Ohio and Florida, which is huge for the president's reelection.
Democrats gained governorships.
They did. Not as many as they thought they were going to. But the point
How much
is,
did they put in?
not all states are equal.
How much did they put in Stacey Adams governors?
Tens of billions.
And
she's refusing to concede defeat, even though she's 3 points down, 3 full percentage
The
points.
question is whether or not he gets 50% or not.
He has 51 right now.
well,
I'm not saying that she's going to succeed in that, but that's the issue. It's not whether she'd win. It's
Well, look,
whether she
Gillum had the decency to concede.
well, she's not giving up. She says that she's not conceding the Georgia governor's race despite Republican candidate Brian Kemp's lead. So what are we
Look,
going to do?
keep in mind, this is a woman, and I'll just say it, I personally think Stacey Abrams is racist. This is a woman who had a white Democrat woman running against her, and in a debate, her supporters in the crowd shouted her white opponent down for talking, saying black people should be heard. Now, that's what her supporters did in an actual Democratic Party debate televised. So this woman couldn't talk because she was a white woman.
Anyway, there was a tremendous amount of money spent in Georgia for that governor's race.
Now, keep in mind, some of that had to go to pay off her multiple credit card debts that she was defaulting on because she said she didn't know how credit cards worked. She had tens of thousands of dollars in credit card debt defaulting on about 8 or 9 credit cards.
There's the new Republican strategy.
Franklin, she's running to be governor of the state, and her explanation is, I didn't know how credit cards work.
She's the one Trump
We're
said wasn't
going to
qualified.
put the people who run the elections on the ballot. for the election they're running. That's the new Democratic strategy.
Well, I'm sorry, Franklin, the Constitution doesn't allow for that. Maybe that's something the voters in Georgia want to look at.
I've got some numbers on money.
All right,
They're not split down by race, but if we just look at Tennessee, Tennessee Senate race, I'm sorry, it is 53.5 million. And what I think is most telling is where the money is spent. For Democrats, 5.6 million. For Republicans, 9.2 million. So for Democrats, 5.6 million. Against Democrats, 20.3 million. For Republicans, 9.2 million. Against Republican, 17.5 million. So the amount of money they spend
Huge
to
amount of money.
go against their adversaries.
And guess
for
what?
themselves.
And guess what?
It works.
Although we're having a debate about free speech, the vast majority of that money came from outside the state.
Yeah,
no
this-
matter which
this is-
candidate it's for,
It's still
against.
free speech.
This is all outside money, actually. This is all outside spending. So that's 53 outside. And also, for those listeners wondering, last week you guys made predictions about how the races would go, and you pretty much hit it on the head. John gave Bill Lee a 18 to 20%
John was closer
margin.
to right than I was.
He was. Franklin gave him a 10. John gave Marcia Blackburn a 5%. Franklin gave her about a 2%. Franklin said Republicans would get 52 seats in the Senate. John said 54.
Split the difference.
Franklin said...
Well, actually, McSally, I think, will still pull this out.
Yeah, I mean, I think y'all are pretty much on where it needs to be, though. Franklin said in the House, Democrats get to 230, and John said 222. Well done, gentlemen.
Well, right now I'm right on the House, but there are 50.
224 right now.
There are
So,
about 15 now.
And most of those are in California.
But we had several key people that Kathy McMorris Rogers in Washington State's one of our leadership people. They were really targeting her. Washington's a pretty dependably liberal state. She won re-election. She was able to hang on.
What, are we going to be going through another 2 years of...
Maxine Waters is going to be chairman of the banking committee. Now, this is
That's
a woman.
unbelievable.
This is a woman who actually asked the Treasury Secretary to intervene on behalf of a bank without disclosing that her husband owned major stock position in that bank. And she's going to be chairman of the banking committee.
Well, she'll probably get caught up in something.
Look, they've got a mess on their hands. If they reelect Pelosi, first off, you've got, I think, close to 50 House members that swore they wouldn't vote for Nancy Pelosi. I think that she will probably force them to vote for her. That's the first thing that she's going to make them do. That'll be their first vote.
How can she make that for her?
Because she'll have it locked up. And at the point she has it locked up, if they don't vote for her, they won't get anything. So, because she doesn't want to have 50 or 60 people vote against her when she's just coming back into power. She wants to have it look like they're all behind her, so she'll force them to vote for her. Well, they've promised their people. Now, most of these people were elected in districts that Donald Trump won, and so they're conservative districts. They picked up some Republican votes to take these seats.
Leadership.
And then the
contest.
second problem is you can't control someone like Maxine Waters. And the banking committee, she's probably, they're talking about subpoenaing Trump's tax returns. Based on what? There's no requirement that a presidential candidate release their tax returns. They've done it, and he did some. He didn't do what they want. But what are they going to base that on? And he's going to fight it, and it's going to tie things up.
Justice lawyers failed to halt Trump's financial records release. I'm sitting here looking at a headline that just happened.
Well, that's when somebody stole them and illegally released them.
Okay. So we're going to have another 2 years of Trump investigations about nothing.
More and more. The problem is these people that got elected tonight are all moderate Democrats. Where they were successful is where they recruited people that you might say used to be the Democratic Party. And they were good at recruiting them, and those are the kind of people they had to have in those districts. But you've got people like the Cortez girl up in New York that are really the emotional leadership in the party. And they're going to demand that they investigate everything they can on him. They're going to demand Medicare for all. Medicare for all is, you can't pay for it. But she was asked last night, and she said, well, you just pay for it. You just pay for it. Now, it's $32 trillion over 10 years.
Just pay for it, John.
Just pay for it. That was her answer. Just pay for it.
Franklin, what do you see is going to happen in the next 2 years?
Well, I think, barring some bombshell, I personally think this impeachment thing's off the table. That's my personal view.
Nadler's already said they're going to do it.
Can I talk for 2 seconds?
I'm just telling you.
I think that's unlikely. The Senate majority is too big for that to even realistically be there. Are there going to be more investigations? Yes, because the Democrats have the ability to subpoena witnesses now, which they did not have before. Is that problematic for the president? I suspect so, because there's a lot of his business things that's gone on since he got elected that are kind of fishy, to be honest.
I read one of them the other day, that some hotel somewhere.
He's got a hotel that's still
and
operating.
anybody that came there that's from a foreign country, they're going to say that he's profiting from it or something.
Well, I
the
think
Emoluments Act.
that's a legal issue that is going up through the
Yeah, but
courts
the
right
problem
now,
with that, Franklin, is do you have a legal toehold to do that as a Democrat? Yes, you do. The problem is if you've got one of the most exclusive, ritzy hotels sitting across the park from the White House, that's going to attract foreign visitors. And he owned it, and I'm sorry he owned it, but that was it.
Except what those foreign visitors did was take their business from other hotels just down the street that they'd been doing for years and years and years.
This was a new hotel that was just completed, right?
Yes.
But that's only a small portion of it.
And
That's
it
not
was
a part of it.
Was it being built before he ever ran for president?
Yes,
He
and
bought
he's
it?
not even sole owner. He's a part owner in it. Basically, most of these hotels that they're going to complain about, he actually licenses names to. He doesn't actually own the hotels.
Well, that turns out to be sort of a legal shell game. That's not entirely true.
Well, tell me what's true then.
It's very convoluted, the method in which he does it. But basically, what he does is
LLCs or
sets up
corporations?
LLCs that manage the hotels.
Okay.
Another LLC that licenses his name and so forth. And then the LLC gets some percentage of ownership in the hotel. Okay. And then there's ample evidence where they went in and told investors in some of these properties that X amount of rooms in it had already been sold, because some of them have ownership opportunities in them, and got them to invest more. And it turns out that wasn't true at all. They hadn't sold those at all yet. And so it ended up being a financial house of cards, but he's insulated because of the corporate structure between it.
So why do we need investigations?
Because that's pretty shady.
Is it as shady as getting a local mob boss to buy the land next to your house and then sell it to you for next to nothing when you were just a state senator with no money at all, and now you're a multi-millionaire?
If that's actually the case, then yeah, that's
Tony
possible.
Resco, look it up.
That's entirely possible, John. But as I've said many, many times, I'm not really scared of investigations. I welcome.
You'd be okay if there was an investigation of Hillary and Bill right now.
Sure, go for it. What's stopping you?
Democrats.
Look,
How did the Democrats stop the Justice Department from investigating? They didn't.
Well,
The only thing stopping them is themselves.
Here's the problem,
Could it be?
Franklin.
Could it be the way they finagled the Attorney General and put him in the corner?
He wasn't in the corner about investigating Hillary.
He's been in the corner ever since
He's not in the sidelines for that.
I don't disagree with you that they should have investigated other things. Here's the reason they don't, Franklin. There is an establishment in all of these departments that is in bed with everybody, Republican or Democrat, and they can't afford for that to come out.
The reason they don't, Steve, is that contrary to the myth that runs through Fox News world, they did investigate it. They investigated the heck out of it. And she, unlike these lily-livered folks you guys are propping up, sat down on national television and put her hand up in the air and swore to tell the truth and let them question her for 12 hours so everybody could judge for themselves. Where do your guys do that? They go hiding for the hills. So bring on the investigation of Hillary and Bill and anybody else you want to investigate.
We haven't investigated
I don't care.
the foundation at all. There's been no investigations
What's
of all the money.
stopping you, John?
Because there's too many people in the establishment of government that are involved in it, that have an axe in it. And
The
so
Republicans
we can't,
chair the committee.
I didn't disagree with you. I'm telling you.
But you voted for
I'm
them
telling
again.
you. No, I'm telling you in the Treasury Department, in the State Department,
the
there are
Congress?
too many people in the machinery of it that are involved in it on both
Congress,
sides.
John? You've had both of them the last 5 years.
You're not listening to me, Franklin. They don't want to expose it because there's too much of it everywhere.
Then you can't say, John, you want to drain the swamp. If you're going to send them right back up
Franklin,
there.
the problem
It's what I
with-
said before.
the problem
If you
with- no,
actually
listen
believe
to me,
that,
Franklin.
you would have to
it's
say...
not the elected
you voted-
people. It's the people who have a career for
Elected
life.
people
It's the
are
career
chairing the
people.
committees, John.
It's the career people, Franklin.
They can investigate
They're
whatever they
everywhere.
want.
Let's take a break. We'll be right back.
You're listening to Backfire with Steve Hickson. We'll be right back after this.
Hello, I'm Johnny Cash.
And you're listening to WOOPLP, Cleveland, Tennessee. WOOP FM is a broadcasting service of the Traditional Music Resource Center, and we play America's original music. Want to make your Wednesday night memorable? Come to the Bald-Headed Bistro, where Dana Rogers plays live every Wednesday night, 6 to 8:30 p.m., live on the patio. Come enjoy delicious food cooked by the bistro's renowned chef, Wesley True, and take in the eclectic folk sounds of Dana Rogers every Wednesday night, 6 to 8:30 p.m. Hope to see you there at the Bald-Headed Bistro.
Attention, Cleveland area creditors. Are you tired of dealing with debtors that owe you money? I'm Jeff Renfro, and I've owned and operated Financial Recovery, a debt recovery specialist here in my hometown of Cleveland for 18 years. We're a licensed and bonded Tennessee collection agency working for a wide variety of creditors, from commercial, manufacturing, physicians, dentists, attorneys, small business owners, to individuals. Look, any kind of business dealing with billing, charge accounts, or even return checks. I know your past due accounts are not a top priority for you, but they would be to me. Let me try to make it easy for you to make a change in the way you've been handling your accounts. There's no contract and no cost to you in most cases, as our fee of only 30% can be added to the balance owed to you. So, whether you have hundreds of accounts monthly and need help with your billing and collection, or you're just an individual and somebody owes you money, let me help you. Give me a call at 400-5376 and I'll come by and see you. That's 400-5376.
Financial Recovery, a licensed and bonded collection agency in Cleveland, Tennessee, 400-5376.
We're at the Train Heating and Air Conditioning Testing Facility to experience their infamous torture tests firsthand.
Hi, Orin Kid, this is cold. I'm surrounded by HVAC units covered in a layer of ice and snow. I get it, it's hard to stop a train.
Ready for a heating and air unit that's been tested in the harshest environments possible? Stop thinking about the other guys and get a Train. Call Mechanical Systems today to get your home on the road to comfort. 336-5739.
Train, the most reliable heating and cooling brand.
Another SOS, and you're stressing, and that's the time to check in and check into cash.
It's that time again. Are you more back to school or back to bills? When you need extra cash, text the word quote to 55670 for a free, no obligation quote. Learn how much cash you can pre-qualify for. That's quote to 55670. Get pre-qualified today.
Your one-stop money shop. Check into cash.
After 135 years, Hardwick Clothes, America's oldest since 1880, has delivered on our commitment to produce the finest navy blazer in America. This limited edition blazer was announced as the style winner in Garden & Guns Made in the South Awards. Crafted in Cleveland, Tennessee, we use premium Italian wool from the Tale Barberis, custom Bimberg lining, and signature gold buttons. It's available through the finest men's stores or at hardwick.com.
Matthews Pool and Spa Company, located in Cleveland, Bradley County for over 45 years. You know them. They're your new swimming pool construction and supply company in Cleveland, Tennessee, now with 4 generations of Matthews to serve you. Matthews Pool and Spa Company, for over 45 years, your swimming pool construction and supply company, spa or hot tub installation and maintenance. Get all of your supplies for your pool or spa right now. And that's the new location in the old Quinn Electric Company building behind KFC at 2724 Key Street in Cleveland. Call Matthews now, 476-4521. You better get your order in now for your new pool construction for this spring and summer. 476-4521. Matthews Pool and Spa Company. Gonna jump in. Woo!
No dealers allowed.
Jackson Catnapper, family owned and operated in Cleveland since 1933, offering the best with over 70 styles of recliners, sofas, electronic lift chairs, full living room packages. Call Mike now at 961-7239 because Jackson Catnapper now offers sales to the public
Every Saturday. That's right. Every Saturday.
from 8 in the morning to 1 in the afternoon. Or call Mike at 961-7239 or go see him
Every Saturday.
at 1911 King Edward Avenue, just across from the main plant. Jackson Catnapper, family owned and operated in Cleveland since 1933. 961-7239.
No dealers allowed.
You're listening to Backfire with Steve Hickson on Woo FM. Call 423-614-5553 to join in on the conversation. Now, back to Backfire.
We're back. All right. What do you think were the big upsets? Where were the shockers?
Shockers?
Yeah, in the elections.
Oh, I will say I was personally surprised by the Florida governor's race. I thought that no matter whether you're Democrat or Republican, that's not what I'm getting at right now. I thought the Republican candidate was one of the worst candidates from a campaign standpoint that I've seen. He started his campaign by being asked why he wanted to be governor, and after about 3 minutes, he couldn't come up with an answer. Well, it wasn't 3 minutes of silence, but he fumbled around, but never really enunciated why he wanted to be governor. And his campaign really had a whole bunch of missteps during it that surprised me. I'm not talking about whether you like him or you like his policies, whatever they were, or not. And the other candidate ran a pretty good race from avoiding big gaffes kind of thing.
Well, I mean,
so that I was surprised by
I don't disagree, frankly. I would just say that the Democrat candidate was the mirror image. I think he had nothing on he had things on paper. To be honest, if they had recruited, and they weren't happy, the Democrat establishment didn't want him to win the primary because he's a socialist. So on paper, he was a terrible candidate, but on the campaign trail, he's very good. He's very smooth. He's very slick. He speaks well. And he's good at turning issues around. He has extremely credible allegations and investigations of criminality in his mayor's office. And he was able to basically not have to answer that by accusing the other side of being racist for even bringing it up. Now, normally you'd expect that to be given, oh, you're a racist, and then the public demands that you press through. The public accepted it in Florida. So he didn't even have to answer those questions.
Did you get down to see Trump in Chattanooga?
No, I was out of town.
Yeah.
Did you go?
I wanted to, but I just didn't. I didn't even know it was happening. I've been down to Florida, came back in. Next thing I know, he was going to be there. So anyway,
I think that the Indiana Senate race was shocking, and the percentage was shocking. Joe Donnelly got beat bad, and nobody saw that. And at the beginning of the night,
the polls show.
Yeah, the comments at the beginning of the night was that the Republican Mike Braun might be able. And as a matter of fact, when the polls were first closing, I read some reports that said, well, he's going to fall short, and he didn't fall short. He beat Donnelly bad.
One of the problems they had with polls in this election was almost all the polls dramatically underestimated the turnout for a midterm election, and so in many cases it turned out not to be reliable.
But also cell phones are having an effect on the polling as well.
That's true. Some interesting things.
Why are cell phones having?
Because they don't have everybody's cell phone. Usually everybody had a landline, so you could pull it up, look at it, call whoever you wanted to.
What are they going to have to do in the future? Because this is 2 elections in a row.
Well, I don't particularly like polls anyway. I think polls, the problem with polls for me, the way the media does it, if the media's even on it, it's okay, but they're not. And so when you do a poll, are you doing a poll to see where it's at, or are you doing a poll to influence where it's at?
I tend to agree that I wish the media did not report polls. Or if they did it twice during the election season, not every other day.
Yeah, it becomes a factor in and of itself.
Some interesting stuff from it today. We have a record. There are now 94 women in the United States House, 21 or so senators. Big number now. Most ever. I think 22% of the Congress total overall is now female.
2 Muslim men.
I think we need to congratulate our locals here, Mark Hall and Mike Bell, for your victory.
74 to 76%.
Go do a good job.
The whiskey, I'm going to call it the whiskey referendum. It passed in Cleveland. Pretty large, as Mr. Trump would say, pretty largely.
I think it's interesting and good that people in Cleveland decided to go to the polls and do something out of the morality and the idea of creating a better environment for the kids growing up here and make liquor easier to buy.
Well, I think it's pretty clear that in 2016 they surrendered any notion of morality driving their ballot choices, John.
Yeah, but Bredesen lost, so it's okay, Franklin.
I was referring to the president. Once you embrace grab them by the genitals, I don't think
you know what, Franklin, I'll take a crude comment over someone flying to foreign countries and having sex with underage girls.
Well, that wouldn't,
which is what your party tolerates.
Although if it had been and it was a Republican, you would have surely supported him.
So let me ask you.
By the way, wait a minute. Did anybody notice that nobody congratulated Marsha Blackburn for being the first woman senator from the state of Tennessee?
Hey, Marsha! Thank you, Franklin.
Steve won the battle of the neighborhood signs. Yeah.
Yeah.
But he just has to, crow for a while over there.
Right now, Montana, the Republicans up. If we take Montana, that's another pickup. Now, they picked up Heller. Heller lost.
What about West Virginia?
Joe Manchin.
Only Democrat senator who voted for Kavanaugh is the only one who to survive in these red states.
And the rest that voted against
every other
him
one lost.
That's pretty amazing, really. What do you think is going to happen with all this rhetoric that's been going on the last 2 years since Trump was elected? Will it calm down some now? You think?
No.
It's going to get worse?
Well, look.
I mean, he's getting a lot of stuff done. Is he not doing some positive things?
Look, as a Republican, I had my concerns for his dedication to Republican ideals. I think he's probably very open to dealing with the Democrats. It'll be interesting to see what he offers and what they do.
That's actually the interesting question, is what John just said.
Well, you know what? I don't have a problem with getting in the middle.
Well, and maybe that'll be what happens, and if so, that was the Clinton strategy, was triangulation, they called it.
Yeah, but here's the problem. The Clinton strategy of triangulation with the Republican Congress got him reelected. So the Democrats have to decide, do we work with him and possibly help his reelection prospects, or do we oppose him, which I think will help his reelection prospects?
Well, the Dems have to do something to get rid of this socialist side, don't they? Don't they have to clean that up?
They can't. That's their base right now.
Folks, you got different areas of the country with different views. That's what's going to happen.
The DNC chairman said that Cortez girl was the future of the Democratic Party.
Well,
she's an open, ignorant socialist.
Well, I mean, frankly, in all honesty, I've talked to a lot of hardcore Democrats that are having a problem with all these socialist things now, and I really think some of them are starting to switch over and vote on the Republican side now because they've come so far left. I mean,
well, that may be the case here in Tennessee,
okay,
Steve. I wouldn't even, the numbers would tend to back you up on that.
Okay.
That's not reflected nationwide at all.
Well, we're getting back to the rural. We're getting back to the rural area
outside of the flyover.
Well, that's really the heart of the debate here, though. The facts are that Democrats got 8% more of the vote last night than Republicans. That's a huge number. That's more than the Obama
Let me ask
landslide
you a
in
question.
08.
Let me ask you a question, Frank. You keep saying that. Are you willing to turn over all the decisions to New York and Chicago? Are those people going to have your best interest living in Tennessee
Well,
at
what
heart?
I'm saying to you is that the interests of people in those areas may not be the same as the interests of people in Omaha,
I'm
Nebraska.
asking you, what's your opinion on your willingness to submit to their will?
Yeah,
of all, I have to
liberalism. That's what I call
Well, I embrace many aspects of liberalism.
Okay,
then
moved
what?
to New York City.
What do you embrace?
I think that statistically speaking, the data from 1900 to 2018 overwhelmingly shows that the country was more prosperous and growing at a higher rate when the tax allocation was different than it is now.
Franklin did.
He asked me a question, and I'm answering it.
So how would you change the tax allocation?
There's no question what I would do.
Tell me.
I would raise the taxes at the very top. I would lower them a little bit for the people in the middle.
How many at the top
That's
will pay
what I
that
would do.
higher tax?
Huh?
How many will pay it?
Well, if we enforce the laws, most of them.
No, they won't pay it, Franklin. They have all kinds of money to hire accountants and business people. They won't pay it. The people
Well,
who will pay it are people like me and you, the small business owners.
It is true, John. It's absolutely true that just pointing at what the tax rate is an illusion because the people at the top pay
Then let's do a
dramatically
flat
less than
tax.
that.
Republicans have supported a flat tax for years.
Can I
Your
say-
people won't even ask about it.
Do you know why the economy's doing so well right now? Do you understand why it's doing so well?
Well, I know parts of why it's doing well.
Tell me why.
Well, first of all, we have begun to spend a lot more on infrastructure over the last couple of years, which is putting people back to work. Number one, that's a big chunk of it.
Well, we're building airplanes, maybe.
Manufacturing jobs are going up.
Yeah, Obama didn't want manufacturing jobs.
Frankly,
There's not a huge difference in
when we had
manufacturing
higher
jobs.
taxes under Obama. Obama's people came out and said 2% GDP was the new
How about
normal.
this number?
No, wait a minute.
No.
Answer why your president, with higher taxes at his helm, said 2% GDP growth was the new normal and we couldn't expect any more. Why did he say
He never
that?
said you couldn't expect
He said
more.
2%'s the
He never
new
said that
normal.
last-
What the hell's normal mean, Franklin?
And first
normal
of all,
means
first
that's
of
it.
all,
That's
Trump,
what you get.
Trump has yet to hit the best Obama quarters.
Okay.
Those are facts. Whether you like it or not. Here's another fact, which was widely reported even on Fox News this past week, but it's true. The last 21 months of the Obama administration, more jobs were created than in the first 21 of the Trump one. That's a fact.
Or they
We're at
McDonald's.
zero unemployment, basically.
Most of them were McDonald's jobs.
That's a fact.
Well, I mean,
They were.
part-time jobs. They were.
Wage growth is for the first time in 10 years has gone up under Donald Trump.
Yeah. Interest rates.
Yeah.
Where should interest rates end up?
Oh, they're going to slowly and gradually go back to a normal interest rate.
Like 5-6%.
That's probably closer to the historic normal, wouldn't you say?
That's where I liked it.
Okay. Well, I mean, there's a good side and a bad side to interest rate increases. Obviously, if they're low, that should encourage investment, right?
All right.
I mean, like capital investment.
Mm-hmm.
On the other hand, it lowers people's income from bank accounts and so forth. But then you got to measure that with the inflation rate. I mean, if inflation is 5 or 6%, then 5 or 6% interest rates aren't very good. If inflation is 2% and you got 5% coming in, that's really good. So, that's a little more complicated.
Well, I think the future. We need to end up around 5-6%. I think.
I think that ultimately is because
and the
it
reason
also
I'm
gives-
saying that is for senior citizens to be able to earn something on savings.
Well, you know what? One of your problems with that, though, Steve, is you apparently consider money people earn as their money. It's not. It's the government's money to be redistributed to other people. So they'll vote for you.
I'd like to see us keep our money and be able to earn some interest rate on money that other people need to capitalize on business.
Well, look, one of the first things the Democrat majority will want to do is raise capital gains tax, which will hurt well, they're not going to pass it because they'll pass it in the House and it won't pass in the Senate. But the first thing they want to do is roll back all of these things that the Trump administration has put in place that's gotten us to 3 and 4% GDP again.
I will say that we just are, as a nation, we're always trying to find a way to create a new tax. And I'd like to see us try to create less taxes.
Then Franklin mentioned the complexity.
We got a serious debate that's got to come up.
Then you'll support a flat tax, right, Franklin?
Depends on what the alternative
is. Flat tax is about as fair as they get.
There's some serious debates that have to come up. I mean, let's look at our military for a moment. How long can they continue to fight this never-ending war without eventually breaking down? That's a serious problem that we ought to be talking about.
So we ought to go ahead and give Iran some more money.
I'm sorry, I don't know what the issue is there. What those two things had to do with each other.
Well, I just,
here's a problem with that.
I mean, you got people who.
I guess where I'm going with that is Obama thought he could buy peace.
Frankly, what determines the end of a war? When you say, well, it's too hard, or when you defeat the enemy?
You got people who are on 4th and 5th deployments there. That's a serious problem.
You got jihadis that are on 100th deployment.
Thank you for that overwhelming sympathy to their families.
You have to fight. Here's your deal. You either defend what you have or someone takes it. That's kind of how this works in the world.
What is it we have in Afghanistan, John, that we're defending?
We are keeping them from blowing our buildings up again. We're keeping them from having a base to attack us. It's called the Trade Tower, Franklin. I know it's been a while, and I know you Democrats like to just forget about those kind of things.
Yeah. Well, I personally, I like a good military. I think it's always made America strong for America to have a strong military.
We don't have one. I'm suggesting that we have to have a conversation, though, about, this year's budget proposed by the Trump administration reduced the military budget. Yeah, maybe that's a good thing. I don't know.
Well, maybe.
But the question is, what are the priorities that we're funding with the military? I'm not talking about slashing military spending, and what is it we're asking them to do, and whether they can do it?
Protect America.
Do you know why Bush had to activate the National Guard and the reserves when we went after them after 9/11? Because Bill Clinton cut the military basically in half. We went from 36 carrier groups under Clinton down to 19 carrier groups. He destroyed the military. And the reason we get into war every time in America is not because we have too big of a military, it's because we have too small of it. And what this shows you is Franklin didn't say anything about entitlements that are actually 6% of the budget now. He didn't say a word about we need to be looking at entitlements. He said we need to look at the military. So when the Democrats take power, they want to cut the military. They don't want to touch entitlements. Entitlements is going to sink the entire country if we don't deal with it.
Thank you, John, for telling me what I think.
Well,
it's so much easier than when I let you do the thinking.
That's where you went, Franklin. You went to the military right off the bat. That's the first thing you talked about when you talked about cutting the budget.
That does not, by any stretch of rational imagination, mean I'm uninterested in talking about other topics.
Why didn't you talk about it first?
But unlike you, John,
why didn't you talk about it first?
I like the ability to talk about
Why didn't you talk about it first, Franklin? It's much bigger than the military. You could wipe the entire military out, and we'd still have the same deficit.
Because Republicans are the ones who can't figure out what their ideology is with regard to the military, as far as I can tell, at least.
As far as our budget deficit, Franklin, the military is a drop in the bucket.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I feel a lot better with our military being built up. I think we are a better nation with our military. My problem is I don't know where we're getting personnel for the military.
That is part of what I just talked about.
Under the volunteer system.
Well, it's because these Democrats in the cities don't want to do that either.
Really, John?
It's the country boys that go over.
In the cities
Franklin,
who joined the military.
It's Saturday Night Live's a city boy that thought he would make fun of a Navy SEAL who fought 3 tours of duty, lost his eye, went back and fought 2 more tours of duty with one eye missing, and Saturday Night Live's little pasty-skinned white boy liberal decided that was something to make fun of, which they have failed to even comment on since then. So apparently, the country boys that are over there defending our country are now fodder for liberal elites to make fun of.
Apparently, you think Saturday Night Live is what we ought to be talking about.
I think they're your people. They're your liberal people. And to be honest, Franklin, the culture is one of our problems. The culture is what fights against the good boys that are out and women that are defending our country from the farmland.
What about history?
I'm sorry.
We keep trying to destroy our history. Why? Our history
doesn't fit what the liberals think it ought to be.
Actually, I'm not for destroying history. I'm for telling history. But you got to tell the real history. You can't just tell the phony one.
Well, you think we'll tear down all these statues and memorials?
I think you ought to put out accurate information about them. That's what you ought to do.
What do you think about this, Franklin? One of our astronaut, Mark, Gifford's husband, quoted Winston Churchill, and all these people attacked him online. All these liberals, that Churchill was a horrible, horrible man, and he actually responded and apologized and said, I wasn't aware of Churchill's history, and I'm so sorry that I didn't know that and that I quoted him, and I'm going to educate myself now. So the man who saved basically Western civilization from the Nazis is now a horrible man who can't even be quoted, according to, again, pasty-skinned liberals from the city.
Again, tell the whole story.
What whole story? He saved us from the Nazis, Franklin.
Sure, he did. He did. He was also violently racist. So tell the whole story.
Who are we talking about?
Churchill.
It's
Winston Churchill.
I mean, Lord knows, the man wrote 40 books. It ain't that hard. Tell the whole story. This is the problem with the debate. John doesn't want that.
Franklin, I don't. You're missing the point.
You want to be able to get up on your pedestal.
I don't mind telling. How do you know the story?
We got to preserve
How do you know
history.
the story?
Why don't we tell the
How
truth?
do you know the story, Franklin? How do you know it?
Can we get the truth?
We got a big Confederate monument here in Bradley County. It's been a big part of our culture for a long time.
Yeah.
Bradley County went with the Union. All of our ancestors weren't fighting for the Confederacy.
Actually, it was
That's
about
the truth.
divided.
It was split.
Tennessee was a very divided
Bradley
state.
County went with the Union.
Franklin,
John, you know
how
it's
do you
true.
know the
Just
story?
admit it.
How do you know the story about Winston Churchill?
Which story, John?
You said he was a racist. How do you know that?
There's all kinds of stories that he wrote, comments that he made.
Absolutely. So you
So
know
tell
that.
the
So
truth.
the story is told. That's the point, Franklin. Nobody said you should tell the story. They said you shouldn't even quote the man. That's the difference. I don't care about telling the story. I don't care that there are books out there that talk about how his position that's now labeled Islamophobic, I think is a pretty accurate position. But I don't care that it's told. What you all do is you don't want anybody to talk. So the guy simply quoted one of the good quotes that you might accept, and your side said you can't even quote the man.
More, John.
You said you can't even quote the man.
I didn't say that.
Your people did.
My people.
Yep. Your pasty-skinned liberals in the city.
Oh, that's the new one. That's the new one. Because now the new snowflakes are the Republicans who can't stand being called out.
You mean
yes?
You mean being made fun of for losing an eye in battle defending the country? I guess that's being a snowflake.
No, the Republicans who are just scared to death that somebody's going to tell the truth about them.
Well, let me change the subject a minute. We're about out of time. Where are we going to be? Where are we going with the Russian investigation against Donald Trump going forward?
I think you're going to hear a lot more in the next 60 days. Now that the election's over, I think they did it the way they should have, which is not do something before the election.
So do you think anything's going to come out of it?
Do I think anything's going to come out of it?
Mm-hmm.
Well, I think that he's going to make a report to Congress as he's required to do.
Okay.
I mean, to the Justice Department as he's required to do.
Right.
I think parts of it will be not flattering for some people in the Trump administration. Do I think that the president's going to be impeached over it? No.
Do you think he had anything to do with it?
I don't know the answer to that.
I think it's going to come out, and there's not going to be anything really there. I think some of it may be a little embarrassing, but there's nothing illegal there. There's never been anything illegal there. Now,
well, if that's the case,
the new crazy chairman of the House will investigate it. They will bring it back up. They will try and gin it up for the next 2 years.
Here's where I think this whole election process ended up. We're about out of time. I think this was a good year for Trump.
It was a good year for
Trump. And I think the next election,
I think they've reelected him. I think last night reelected Trump.
I think it's going to change a lot of things in the next 2 years, and I'm hoping that Trump will be president again. And I hope that we can get a few things done when all this crap about Russian investigations and all this stuff is finally weighed out. Term limits. I think everybody in this room's for term limits, right or wrong.
I am.
I'm ambivalent about it, one way or the other.
Well,
I mean, I can see the argument for it. I can see the argument against it. I mean, if you ultimately believe in democracy, the argument is, why should there be? But on the other hand, you can certainly make an argument that being up there too long does screw things up.
Well, John, how do you feel?
I'm for term limits. I think you'll have people that are really, really good, that you really, really like, that'll be limited out. But I believe there are always good people waiting to come up.
I think that the world turns, and we need to keep turning the politicians with it. The problem, I think, with Washington is they get up there and they're there for 30, 40 years. It's just crazy.
Well, I mean, you'll still have people. They'll serve their term limit in the House, and then they'll run for the Senate, and they'll serve that, and then they'll run for governor, and then they'll come back and run for Senate again. Mm-hmm. But you will at least stir the pot.
All right. Anything else y'all want to talk about before we leave? Because it's time to go. Hey, we're playing a little song for everybody.
Oh, is there?
Everybody be happy, and we'll see you next week. Bye-bye.